Thank you for joining me this morning. I wanted to have a discussion about cancellations and non-completions of apprentices and trainees. And here at TABMA, you're part of the team that look after the apprentices and trainees in a direct manner, mentoring them, recruiting them, and talking them and accompanying them through their journey. So getting together this morning to have a quick chat about what your experiences with these cancellations are, and looking at the figures from the National Centre for Vocational Education and Research, what we in the industry called NCVR. We're not alone in our experiences here at TABMA as far as cancellations are concerned. The figures from apprentices that started in 2017 indicate that almost 47% that commenced that year did not complete, which is a staggering figure. And 33.8% of them cancelled in the first year. So that experience is across Australia. It's not just something that we are experiencing here at TABMA. So I think, why don't we first start by talking a little bit about what the recruitment experience is and what young people are feeling when they come into an apprenticeship and traineeship. And I might throw over to you, Kat, as our Senior Recruitment Officer, to talk very briefly about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm sure there's no surprise what's happening at the moment. There certainly is a labour shortage, and there are more jobs than candidates, which we keep seeing on the news. So that's, one reason why we just can't seem to attract young talent at the moment. The other thing is because there is so much choice that I think a lot of young people are actually quite confused with what they want to do. Unfortunately, a lot of schools are still encouraging, students to go to university once they complete school, when we all know that sometimes, university is such a big commitment, and we see it time and time again that they start it and then halfway through, they basically defer it or decide they want to do something completely different. So, there's a lot of factors at play at the moment. And also, I feel like, because there are so many organizations, well-known ones out there that are offering all these perks and benefits, they're actually researching companies as opposed to the positions themselves. So they all want to work for Google or Canva, or Amazon and places like that. So.
Absolutely. When they do start with our company as a group training organisation and other group training organisations, or as an apprentice or trainee, they sign a contract with us that is a term contract. Feeling is that doesn't hold a lot of credibility, or isn't taken very seriously by a lot of apprentices and trainees. So let's look at the numbers. Here at TABMA, our numbers for last year indicate that 23.4% of our cancellations did so within the first month of their traineeship. So 23% started and entered this term contract and then cancelled in the first 4 weeks. 64% of them cited workplace issues as the reason that they cancelled, and another 36% of them included the workplace culture. And 32% of them indicated job expectations. So there's a myriad of reasons there as to why they cancelled. Bianca Buggy, our recruitment assistant, you conduct exit interviews with these people who cancel. What's your experience from those exit interviews in the way that they describe the reason that they've cancelled to you?
Yeah, well, in a lot of the cases, from what the apprentice was expecting and what actually happens, we can see there's a definite gap between, like I said, what the apprentice expects and what the workplace will provide them, whether that be their duties or just the overall culture of the workplace. It just wasn't what they were expecting for one reason or another. Got to manage both the host's expectations and the apprentices. So hopefully in the end it can meet in the middle and eradicate that issue as the reason why they cancel, because it is a pretty big portion of them. So if we can do what we can to reduce that, then it's a pretty good start, I think.
Some of those expectations, Bianca, surround the actual tasks that they're allocated in the workplace. what are they communicating to you as far as that's concerned?
Well, most apprentices will enter their apprenticeship or traineeship, and they know very well that they're going to be, I guess, at the bottom of the ladder. They're very much entry level. They're there to learn. So they know that they're not going to be doing the most exciting task to begin with. But the main purpose you go into the apprenticeship is to learn all there is to learn. So sometimes, for example, they'll get chucked into the timber yard and they'll learn all there is to know about, stacking timber and things like that, and they'll stay there. They won't move anywhere else. And, as an apprentice, everyone knows you do get an apprentice wage, things like that. And if you do stay there and you don't get moved around, things like that, you're not really learning anything else. And sometimes I feel like they're just being used as cheap labour, which is not the whole point of the apprenticeship. So sometimes they can feel stuck and, not getting a lot of variation in their job.
Mm-hmm. So back to you, Kat. A traineeship, and we use the example maybe of the Certificate 3 in Building Product Supply, has 13 units of competency. Yep. What should the employer or the host employer be looking at in terms of that traineeship or the apprenticeship and the units of competency?
Yeah. So the building product supply traineeship is actually a really good traineeship to do, particularly in timber companies, because it covers those warehousing duties, such as learning about the timber products and how to move those products from A to Z. But also, there's a lot of other different units involved, such as customer service, internal sales, and also learning about more of the logistics side, so the scheduling, the working with the delivery drivers to make sure everything goes out smoothly. So there's a lot to cover in that qualification. The point is that you're actually bringing that trainee in to basically, teach them all about your business. You want to make the trainee feel like they're learning and developing each day. And the point of it is to actually give them an opportunity to one day be a manager or in a senior level role. So.
Absolutely. Kat and Bianca, you've mentioned at times that a host employer will interview somebody for a traineeship, and the comment will come back, yeah, they're good, but they don't have enough experience. Could I have your reactions to that individually? Kat first?
Sure. Well, a traineeship is traditionally someone who is, brand new to a career. So whether that be that they might have just come out of high school, or they perhaps had a job with, in retail. So someone who's worked for Coles, Woolies, Kmart, anything like that. Or they have been doing a bit of labouring here and there, but nothing full time. One thing I've learned, particularly with youth, is that they want to develop, they want security, they want stability, and they basically want to be treated like one of the team. So I think things like making sure you're not narrowing the pipeline too much. So not narrowing it right down to you spend months and months and months trying to find that person with experience, when we all know that there is a shortage, particularly in the timber industry. It's hard to find people who've actually worked in the industry before, or the ones that do have a tendency to move around and they just chase that extra money. So yeah, that's my reaction to that.
Mm-hmm. Bianca, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, we all know an apprenticeship or a traineeship is something that predominantly young people go into to learn about an industry or a trade. And when an employer comes back and mentions that, the candidate that we sent them hasn't got any experience or the experience that they're looking for, it kind of frustrates me, because somebody with experience and meets all the tick boxes that you're asking for on paper is not always going to translate to the most perfect candidate that you had in mind. Young people bring to the table a lot more than just their experiences. Better at technology and a range of other things. The experience itself is not all that you should be looking for. You're still going to have to train that person in your business itself, regardless of whether or not they have that experience. So it really does frustrate me a little bit when I get that feedback, because usually there's no other feedback. It's just they were all great except they don't have that experience. So if you took a couple of extra hours to train them up, they'd be perfect, but you just limiting yourself because they haven't got experience on paper.
So really looking at capability and attitude is where they should be looking, as opposed to, do they know what this piece of timber is and what it can do?
Exactly.
Correct.
And you're our senior field officer looking after South Australia and Victoria and Tasmania, which means you're a very busy man. And big part of your job is mentoring and caring for our apprentices and trainees. Workplace issues and workplace culture was mentioned earlier as a big part, or one of the main reasons as to why our apprentices and trainees may have cancelled last year. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough times for everyone. And I think a lot of the time when the trainees start their role, they'll come straight from school. They really don't know what to expect, and it's a real culture shock for them. Likewise, for the employers, they're generally taking on trainees because they're short-staffed. And because they're short-staffed, their abilities to perhaps supervise and guide the guys aren't as great as what they would like them to be. So we get this mismatch between, the expectations of the trainee and the expectations of the host employer, and there's a bit of a gap. It's a bit of quite a juggling act for everybody to make sure that they're getting the right amount of supervision, the right amount of training, and also that the expectations of the trainees aren't, they sometimes want to be moving straight into senior management after a couple of months. So it's a real juggling act, and I think it's tougher now because there is so much more choice. And if the trainee feels that it's not quite right, well, it's very easy to move on to somewhere else, and we're finding that's happening on occasions.
Mm-hmm. A trainee put into a situation where they have a supervisor who really doesn't want to supervise them, or doesn't really care for young people because, young people are just annoying, or that they don't understand what the traineeship is. What effect can that have on the trainees' health and well-being?
That's everything. They can put up with most things, but a supervisor that doesn't really want to be the supervisor is a major issue, and sometimes it gets thrust upon. Often our trainees will turn up with expecting to be Joe as a supervisor, but for whatever reason it becomes someone else who's had that role thrust upon them that they don't want, and it's probably one of the major hurdles we've got to come across.
Mm-hmm. Kat, you've recruited or headed the recruitment of, I think, somewhere just over 500 apprentice and trainees since you've been with TABMA. In that time, what have you learnt about the young people coming into the traineeship and what their expectations of the traineeship is?
Sure. Well, what I've learned is there actually are a lot of young people out there who are looking for meaningful work. It's so important to them. And we can talk all day about, they just want whatever's going to put the most money in their pocket today and not think of the future. But we also have to remember that the cost of living has gone up significantly. It's really hard for someone, particularly if they're living out of home, they own a car, they've got bills to pay, to live on apprenticeship and traineeship wages. However, if the job is perfect for them in a way where it's going to offer them stability, security, and it's going to be a very welcoming environment, money isn't the main thing. They won't go chasing money if they're really happy in the job, is what I'm saying. While I think wages should be reviewed regularly if you do have good employees, I just don't think that's the only reason why they get up and leave. I think that's that's probably one of the last things on their mind. What they don't want to see is walking into a place, especially if they're new to the workforce, and having staff kind of look at them and go, this person's young, they won't last. I won't get along with this person. There's too much of a difference in generation, or, people ignoring them. I don't have time, I'm too busy stop talking, stop asking me questions. I'll only show you once and that's it. You know, that kind of attitude. No one wants to work in an environment like that. Not even someone like myself. You know, I've grown resilience over the years, but I certainly wouldn't stay in a company where I don't feel welcome. So I think the key is if you show them from day one that they're a valuable team member, if you do a proper induction and onboarding, it will just make that person feel so welcome. And then what you also need to do is actually have regular catch-ups, see how they're going, ask them what they've been working on and where they'd like to progress next. Ask them if they'd like to spend some time with some of the managers in the different teams. As long as you just make them feel like they can come to you and ask, hey, like, you know, I'm ready to move on to the next thing, but I'll continue doing these duties, but I just want to learn a bit more, then that's the key to like someone wanting to stay in their job. It's that progression, variety, development, but most of all, it's that nurturing that you provide to your staff.
Kat, onboarding and bringing the trainee into your business is really, really important. It's important how that's done. It's the first impression that a trainee will have of that business. What suggestions do you have?
Particularly small to medium-sized businesses don't often have a HR department that they can help with the onboarding and the inductions and things like that. So I really encourage host employers before they start an apprentice or trainee is have a chat to us, have a chat to the field officer who will be doing the sign up with the apprentice or trainee and ask them, you know, what the steps should be. What do you recommend? We can even put together some templates, not only on, you know, what to do on the first day, which might be go around and introduce them to the people they'll be working with, but also, you know, giving them a copy of what's in the unit and what each unit is, what's involved with each unit, just a summary. And that will help both the host employer and the employee know a timeline and, you know, when to rotate them, when to have meetings to catch up to talk about, you know, the progress, and making sure you check in and give those compliment sandwiches. They're all really important.
Mm-hmm. Seems like an appropriate time to get a comment from you, Bianca, being a trainee yourself. So you're a trainee that we've employed directly at TABMA, and you're in the correct age demographic to comment on this. What attracted you to the traineeship, and what's kept you in the traineeship? Because you're just about to complete soon.
Yes, I am, which is very exciting. Well, when I was applying for this particular job, I just dropped out of uni a few months ago. I was going to study law, didn't work out the way I wanted it to, which I am sure happens to a lot of young kids. And I was looking for something that still, you know, can give me the career development that I was looking for, intending to get that through university. But, you know, still being able to work full time and get, you know, something that's worthwhile. So the fact that it was entry level clearly had a lot of, had a lot of potential to give me good opportunities to what I was hoping for in the long run. That's really what I was looking for. At the time, I was living at home, so money didn't really matter to me too much. You know, I was going to do a certificate for it TAFE anyway, so why not do it together so I can still work full time and get my course? So it's worked out pretty well. But yeah, that's my comment.
One last question for you, Ian. The host employers where you have seen apprentice and trainees successfully complete, what have they had in common?
Well, I suppose the big thing is that they tend to be a workplace that values the whole process, you know, and that are really hoping to make sure that the trainee gets through from one end to the other, rather than workplaces that simply feel that they need more workers, and so therefore we'll put on some trainees because we can't find any qualified people. The ones that embrace the process and assist the traineeship is where it works out better for everyone. And 99.9% of the time, that employee, they'll want to stay at that workplace, and that workplace will want to have them. And so that's probably the biggest thing, the host embracing the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Kat, Bianca, Ian, thank you very much.
Thank you.